Hey guys, I'm Randy Unger, and this is another episode of Under the Radar, where we talk all things film. And with me tonight, I have two very special guests. We have a good friend to the show, Dave Wexler. Hello, sir. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Definitely. We had fun the other night with the Die Hard with a Vengeance commentary. Cool. And also, Chris Malarky. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me back.
Definitely. I love the background. That's awesome.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Did a friend do that? A commission?
Yeah, she did this for me a couple of years back. Just when I was getting ready to go into launch my school, so it was kind of like a gift. So
Nice.
keeps on giving.
I love it. I love it.
Appreciate it.
Very cool. Very cool. So I just want to start off real quick, what you guys might be watching this week, the pandemic picks, I call it. Dave, it's been a while, well, a few nights, but it's been a while to have you on a regular episode.
Right. Yes. It's been a little longer of a time for that one. Yeah.
Yes. What are you watching this week?
I actually was watching the first season of Legion, which I started when it first came out. I only watched like 2 episodes and never was able to keep up with. I have kind of mixed feelings about it. I didn't really know much about Legion from the comics, just that he was Professor Xavier's son and was incredibly powerful. But I found the first episode like interesting when they aired it, when it was new on TV a long time ago, but I never really kept up with it. So I'm watching Resident Alien just because I love Alan Tudyk on Sci-Fi. Still not sure what I think of that show as a whole either, but I will basically watch anything for Alan Tudyk. It's interesting. It's trying to be like a little bit of everything, like just straight up drama, like sci-fi, comedy, kind of all over the place. That's why I'm not so sure I like it that much, because it does do a little too much jumping around. But Alan Tudyk is just fantastic in everything. So he's definitely carrying the show.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Chris? What are you watching these days?
I've been digging a lot into the Black History Month stuff, especially with having the kids around. So just I've been watching. What did we watch last weekend? Antebellum, which I believe is on Hulu or Netflix. I'm not sure which one. All the services are the same to me almost at this point. And then last night we all tuned into Amend, which I think is a Netflix show with Will Smith as the narrator for most of that. So kind of diving into the 14th Amendment.
Free time is very valuable. I understand that. Especially as we get older, things take, precedent. There's definitely responsibilities, but if we could squeeze in 2 hours a night or 2 hours a week with some quality entertainment, then I think that'll keep us sane and keep us going.
Yes,
I mean, that's what I hope to accomplish with this show. Anyone who might be watching, we're going to be reviewing 2 very important films tonight. And if you can get a chance, please see both of these films, because they're both really, really powerful and fantastic. For me, I mean, time is limited for me as well. I maybe put on an episode or 2 of Schitt's Creek. I love putting that. It's like background noise at this point, it's just fun stuff. Chris, are you familiar with William Sadler's work?
No, not really, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, he's best known for Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. He played the Grim Reaper there, and he was also the main villain in Die Hard 2.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I just spoke with him. I interviewed him just a couple of hours ago, and he was just a class act. A really cool guy.
Nice.
Cool. I'm glad I got the opportunity. Okay, guys. So I think we should go into our first film review. And I get these emails sent to me quite often. Sometimes they're movies that don't really appeal to me. Sometimes there's something like this that really stands out and pops. It's called Bullied, and it is a very heartbreaking documentary about teenagers and even younger than teenagers getting bullied, and the effects of that, and the statistics of them, sadly committing suicide on some occasions, and, the school system and parents trying to find ways to combat this situation, which is extremely serious. And, it was heartbreaking. I teared up in a few scenes, and it's a movie that I think all parents in all schools, school administrators should watch, because this is a very, very serious thing. And yeah, I'm really glad I got to see it. But at the same time, I'm not glad. I'm really sad by it. But it's a bittersweet affair. But Chris, I wanted to just talk to you about it because I know you're a martial artist,
Yes.
and I'm sure with your students you've encountered this problem more than a few times. So if you could talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to find a starting point because there's so many things I can speak to regarding what the documentary covered. It was just such a large spectrum. A lot of the bullying is psychological. So I actually learned a couple of things. It's especially in the age we're living now with the digital contact. I didn't think it was as much of a big deal because I'm sort of more from the manual time where it's a device you can just turn it off and just move on, and that's kind of not what's happening. Even though we have a certain subset of people that think that way, or at least I thought that way, it still seems to affect kids to a large degree because when they turn the device back on, it's still there for them to read. And then they're encountering it almost twofold when they get back to school physically, even though we're not exactly in that aspect right now. They're encountering, kind of twice the problem, if you will. And I mean, growing up in my time in like the early 90s, and I was just talking to a friend about this the other day, I remember personally having a fight for the clothes on my backpack. Like, you had something really nice, like a JanSport, where they would try to rip that off. And sometimes realistically, I lost a battle here or there, but, I sent the other guy, kind of a little trophy on the face. So it's like, that was kind of how we settled things back then. We're not in the same time anymore. And that's kind of what this documentary is pumping out. Like, you got to really pay attention to a lot of the micro stuff, especially the online presence. Me having kids now where they're on iPads and whatnot, and a daughter that's going to be in, a school age at some point, it makes you worry a little bit. So even as a martial artist, it's like, I train all of my kids, but there are just certain things you're not able to really, I don't know, fully train them for, to expect and prepare them. So that I think is the aspect in reality that's hard to swallow. You can't prepare someone fully for what they're going to experience. You can almost manage it, but not necessarily prevent it, if you will. So that's where I'm coming from.
And I hear you. Like, times have definitely changed within the last 20 years.
Sure.
Everything is digital now. So the bullies work. It's never done. It's like, you're like you said, it's never shut off.
Right.
And that's what's really scary. And you can't, use karate to combat a computer.
Right. Although, may I add to what I said just on that point there, which actually activated something else for me. Working with kids for the past 20 years and trained thousands of people over time. And I know that martial arts definitely improves not just confidence, but competence, because they're two different things. So being able to stand up to someone, even though you saw something online, and be able to stand your ground with them and be able to keep those things martial arts are able to provide. Not just the physical skills. More so, I've been focusing, as I've matured as an instructor, it's really been about really harnessing the mental aspects of
Right.
what we can use off the mat, because that's where martial arts really has its value, is off the mat, when you're not in front of your instructor, when you're not kicking and punching in the classroom. And as a matter of fact, I don't advocate that anyone goes and beats anybody up, but I may not throw the first punch, but I'll finish if I have to. That's kind of the philosophy. So, building someone physically is actually kind of easy to do, but building the mental reserve and the competence, again, to be able to avoid some of those pitfalls and to not fall into depression and to be psychologically managed. That's some of the things that we've been, and it affects adults too, funny enough. So it's not just children. I mean, there's adult bullying too, and then it's obviously that documentary didn't cover that all that much, but I've personally experienced that with adults and helped them manage that in their lifetime too. It's pretty surprising how much times change, it really is.
And it's so sad with the statistics, the child suicide rates.
Yeah, man, it's
because
very high, especially now.
It's like this documentary needs to be seen by principals, teachers, everybody involved to prevent this, to have like regularly planned scheduled screenings psychological evaluations, stuff like this needs to take place. And
Sure.
I think it's kind of cliche to say, but I think it's true that the parents are the root of all of this. So, it's very difficult to see what's going on inside a kid's home until you see that they have a black eye.
Yes.
So it's very tragic. Dave, what were your feelings and thoughts for this film?
Yeah, I've kind of on and off had lots of opinions and thoughts about bullying for a very long time now. So when this documentary came up on our plate, I was certainly interested in seeing it. As a result, some of the information wasn't that new to me since I'd read a lot about it over the years and stuff like that. But the presentation of it was very, very good and very, like you said, heart-wrenching in the documentary. Personally, as sort of like a film critique, I wish they would have kind of talked less emotionally and more practically about some of the things, but that's not really like a major complaint. In terms of the subject matter, I was particularly struck by one story in there where one of the teenage girls who did end up committing suicide was bullied because she stepped in to prevent another kid from being bullied by 4 other students, I think it was. And then so as a result, those 4 bullies just turned all of their attention onto her, and it just went straight downhill from there until it sadly ended with her suicide. That struck me because, a lot of the sort of Hollywoodized solutions you see to things like bullying are like, oh, well, if one good person steps in and gets in the way, then it'll all be fine. They'll stand up for the person getting picked on and it'll be fine. And sadly, that's not how it really works in the real world. Especially for people dedicated to bullying, they're going to find some way to keep going with it. I was very struck by that story. And as I was watching the documentary, which is only a little over an hour long, for a good 45 minutes of it, I was like, okay, they've done a lot of presenting the problem. That's good. I want to know about the solutions now. And I kept kind of waiting for that to come up. And they had basically kind of one little nod towards a possible solution at the end, which was the social emotional learning as taught in schools, which I think is a great idea. But that took up like 5 minutes of the whole documentary at the very end. I really would have liked to have seen them talk more about like kind of comprehensive solutions to a bullying issue. And they brought up many different issues, like not just that it's what goes on in the home, but also, it's what's brought on by what people see on TV, what social media provides for people like to witness or to do. Examples from leadership, like there's certainly a very good section in there about Melania and Donald Trump. In fact, I remember thinking one of the most hypocritical things I've seen over the last 4 years of Trump's presidency is Melania launching her big campaign against bullying when literally her husband was the bullier in chief of the country at the time. And he was living up to that sort of moniker. That's what he did. It's what he does on Twitter. It's what he does in the media. He just bullies people who he doesn't agree with. I also have opinions on Twitter in that regard. I can't stand Twitter because I feel like they're just like a proving ground for bullies everywhere. They do nothing to stop it. So, I've had all these thoughts about bullying in different mediums. I've certainly been bullied as a kid. I probably inadvertently bullied when I was like in 8th grade and there were 5th graders on the bus, and like, I didn't even think of it at that time. And like, it's so pervasive, and really it feels like only over the last few years that people really started to analyze it and talk about it and think about it and try to solve it. And I really wish this documentary sort of looked forward a little more in that regard towards solutions. But I thought it did a very good job of presenting a lot of aspects of the problem.
It was a good starting point, but I think this could have been a very good series, like a docu-series, like a 6-part examination, and each episode would take you into like a different kid's life, or even an adult that's being bullied now, or even talk about Trump, because he's like you said, the bully in chief. He is, and this is all about power. Like bullying is all about power. That's really it. And Trump was in a position of power, like, the ultimate power. So it's really, it's sad to see that it can happen pretty much anywhere. But this film, it just starts with the kids, focuses on their lives. And yeah, again, the statistics are just really heartbreaking. I think everyone should see this film. It's definitely on my radar, and we're still early on in the year, but this is definitely top 3 or top 5 documentaries I've seen so far. Very important stuff. Chris, would you recommend this to your students' parents?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Yeah, there's a lot of information in there. Like I said, it's always good to have updated things, because sometimes you live in your head, and you think it's one way, and then the numbers come out, which I'm always looking for numbers, and they support something else, and then you try to make my job simply, for the a long time has just been how do you prevent, and that's not necessarily how you prevent, but how do you help people manage their own lives. I'm more of a life coach than anything. I have to be, yes, I'm a martial artist, but then sometimes I have to be a father to someone, and sometimes I have to be a brother to somebody. Sometimes I have to be a friend. So, and sometimes you have to be all those things. So when you take on students, particularly in my field, it becomes, I involve myself to an extent where I want their lives to pan out the correct way. And doesn't mean that they have to kick and punch well. That's not necessarily the solution. What I usually teach is the way to avoid that. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but I think any parent should see that. I'm glad I did.
And that, going back to what you were talking about, self-discipline in martial arts, it's so important. And to teach a kid that to stand up for themselves without throwing a punch,
Yep.
that is the key.
Yes, it is.
It's sadly not always the case.
Right.
And sometimes violence may be necessary, unfortunately, but it really has to start with your brain. Absolutely. And how you see the situation and how you see yourself out of that situation. So I was personally bullied in junior high. I had some negative experiences, but I got through it eventually. I didn't do karate or martial arts or anything, but I think that could have helped. But I got through it. Dave, you mentioned that you got through it as well. So
my biggest experience came from a camp that I went to, or I was like a first-time camper at a camp when I think I was 12-ish, and I was the only first new camper that summer, and so I basically got ganged up on by all the other kids who'd been there since they were little kids and went to summer camp together.
And then you probably revealed that situation to some of the counselors, and they spoke to the kid briefly, and that sort of fixed things for maybe a day, and then
I was gonna say, not even they almost, what I saw from my perspective is that they did almost nothing to stop it and almost kind of encouraged it so that they could be the cool counselor. Like, looking back on it, that's kind of what I remember seeing.
There's different levels, there's different degrees of bullying, and it's sad, and it really shows its ugly head in pretty much all aspects of life. So thank God Trump is no longer president. So that's a step in the right direction. But this is not a political show at all. I just want to say that right now. But so I recommend this documentary fully. I think it could have been longer. You're right. It was just over an hour long. Could have been a solid 2 hours. They could have fit a lot of more important information, or turn into a docu-series. That would have been really much more impactful. But I say see it. Dave, see it?
Yeah, definitely see it. Like, if you don't know anything about the subject and like how bullying is being talked about or analyzed, or how people are trying to solve it, you will definitely learn something.
Yeah. And Chris, see it, right?
Absolutely see it, 100%.
All right. One of the most important films I've seen in recent times. So check out Bullied, and you can check it out. It is currently streaming on Tubi. Tubi is a streaming service. So find that service, download it, and stream this movie, because it's, like we all agree, it's very, very important. All right, guys. So we're going to take a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more film reviews right after this.
Under the Radar is brought to you by Magnitude Jewelry. Add a 2 to match your attitude. Patent pending, interchange genuine gemstone and crystal EMF protection jewelry. For more information, please visit magnitudejewelry.com/gemgirl or call 718-268-6633.
the radar, and we are halfway through the show. Next up, we have also a very important film and very timely. It's called Judas and the Black Messiah, and it focuses on FBI informant William O'Neill, who infiltrates the Black Panther Party in Chicago to gather intelligence on Chairman Fred Hampton. Hampton is played by Daniel Kaluuya, and O'Neill is played by Lakeith Stanfield. These are two phenomenal actors. I first discovered their talents in the horror thriller Get Out back in 2017, and now they're back. They're reunited for another fantastic film. It's directed by Shaka King, based on actual events. It's, it sheds a light on a very important moment in history. This is the late 1960s. You've got Vietnam, you've got the Black Panthers. There's a lot of social unrest, very important time in our country's history. And I think Kaluuya and Stanfield knocked it out of the park. They are both phenomenal. Their performances are very, very relevant, important, especially, unfortunately, in our current social climate. But yeah, this is currently on HBO Max, and in select theaters, and it is just a great film. I definitely, I know Kaluuya has been nominated for a few awards so far, and I have a really good feeling about his chances. Chris, what were your thoughts on this film?
It was very eye-opening, I have to say. I didn't even, it's like a chapter that we don't get taught Black history that much, I think, in the general education system here, and I'm big on that. So it was kind of a chapter that I remember some of the people's names, but we kind of skipped over it. You remember Black Panther Party and, kind of remember the time in history, but not necessarily the specific events that sort of had, reverberating effects. But yeah, this is really, it's really kind of crazy, right? Like, you got the guy, William O'Neill, who ended up just basically, turning his back on, the very, very people that he's supposed to support in this time where, unity was probably at its highest amongst Black people. So it was difficult to see, someone plan out the end of someone else's life, within the span of, supposed to be supporting, this whole action and the whole going against the entire unity altogether. And it was really tragic at the end too. It was really, it's really sad, and violent as was, the actions, the whole climate, the events. It's almost like we're living in that time now. You go outside and I feel the same tenseness just going outside, talking to people, and I'm super relaxed. So, it's just interesting to see. And like you said, very timely.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many things I could say.
And this was over 50 years ago, and we're still dealing with the same issues. This is ridiculous. This is a timeless thing. I don't think I hope it'll go away, but not magically. But I think with films like this, though, it's a step in the right direction, where people are going to watch this, they're going to know, and they're going to learn from the history. They're going to learn from the present, and hopefully the future will be a better time. So yeah, I'm really blown away by this film, and like I said, the performances are really what made it for me.
For sure.
The only criticism I have is that the story did feel similar to like The Departed or Donnie Brasco, movies about cops infiltrating the mob, or just a criminal element, or something as they're not criminals, the Black Panthers, but it's definitely controversial. So when they have someone who's not part of that group infiltrate and try to get information, it kind of felt similar. But the fact that this is pretty relevant to now is what really made this a great film for me.
For sure.
Dave, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny you said the similarity to The Departed, by the way. Like just like an hour or two ago, I was on the IMDb page for the movie, and one of the quotes from Shaka King under the trivia section was that he originally pitched it as a sort of like Departed modeled movie, as a way to almost sort of like slip in a biopic about Fred Hampton, so like that's kind of where the idea started from. So it's interesting that you said that. And the parallels of storytelling are certainly there, whether you have, law enforcement, informant, and group being infiltrated, and the interplay between all of them. But yeah, my two primary thoughts about the movie and its subject are both things that Chris and you just touched on. One is that, it really made me face just how little, like, the schooling that I went through as a kid growing up in this country, how little they teach about like this era of American history, and just like what Black culture was facing throughout most of American history. That was the first thing that, I feel like I barely know anything, and that, if I want to learn about how things actually happened, I have to do all the research and learn this stuff myself, because school didn't do it for me. And I think that's frankly terrible. The fact that, this entire like important, like hugely important aspect of American culture is just glossed over.
Yeah.
I don't know if that comes from, I don't know exactly where that comes from, but it's, I know the projects out there like the 1619 Project from the New York Times are trying to change all that. And I'm very thankful for that. And I hope, if I have kids one day, that they'll have a much better education about the subject than I did. And the second thing is that, I was struck very much by, just thinking, it's like, oh, wow, this takes place in the late 60s, and the cops and law enforcement, the FBI, are just so blatantly racist and trying to stamp down any sort of movement to stand up for themselves. And that times have not changed much at all since then. Like, especially over the last year and a half, 2 years, it could be the exact same thing happening now that happened back then in the 60s. And it really seems like nothing has changed. And that made me incredibly sad.
You've got police, protests. There's beatings in the street. People are getting killed.
Yeah, there's frankly murders happening, and with no repercussions happening at all about it. And that is terrifying, really.
Yeah.
And so like the subjective, like as subjects, those were the two things that struck me watching the movie. In terms of a critique of the film, I hope Daniel Kaluuya wins all the awards. Like he was so good in this role. He was just so perfectly charismatic, so perfectly absorbed into the role. You could just tell, like, what I found interesting about the character, a lot of his delivery was very chill. There's obviously a lot of confrontation going on in general at that, in Chicago in the late 60s between lots of different factions of people. And, his portrayal of Hampton was just always so like chill. He's like, I don't need to be in direct conflict. Like, I'm bringing people together. And he, like, Daniel Kaluuya just embodied that so perfectly. Yeah. Like, just that calmness that, like, to him that, really made what he was saying so powerful. Like, it really amplified that power on screen, just his delivery. It was just so perfect. It was great. I really hope he wins all the awards.
And what's great about that sense of chill, that in such a time of political unrest and violence and turmoil and all this crap going around, you need someone who's calm and collected and cool, and who will speak well and, inspire you to not act out with violence and try to, again, use your brain in a conflict.
Yeah.
Not always easy. It's easier said than done, but it needs to be done, so.
Yeah. It's funny, if you're looking at it almost in terms of the bully dynamics from Bullied, then you look at, the only quote unquote solution that, like, the FBI could come up with was to have, extrajudicial state sanctioned murder of somebody. Like, they assassinated him. Yeah. Like, it's terrifying. Yeah. And like,
Well,
they said they fired like 90 bullets.
Yeah, so 99 shots and
shots to one.
To one. Yeah.
9-to-1 ratio.
That's an assassination. That's execution. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And it was portrayed in no uncertain terms in the movie. Like, they had planned to murder him, and they did.
And Chris, you mentioned Black History Month. We are right in the middle of Black History Month, and this is the quintessential film that people need to see, even kids. Well, maybe not kids, teenagers would be okay. Yeah. But you know what I mean. This is a perfect film to be seen during this time. And I say throw on anything by Spike Lee. Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X. These are some of the greatest films ever made, and they deal with one of the most important and pressing issues in humankind. So it's very sad. Again, I want to go back to Daniel Kaluuya. Phenomenal performance, very charismatic. He has a really good shot at winning. They didn't release the Academy Award nomination. I think he's nominated for a Golden Globe, which I think he has a really good shot at winning, because I don't think I've seen a performance. Actually, no, I amend that. Delroy Lindo, coincidentally enough, in a Spike Lee film, The Five Bloods, he was fantastic. And yeah, he might, Daniel Kaluuya might have a run for his money with Delroy Lindo. But yeah, just great performances all around. And yeah, Judas and the Black Messiah.
Lakeith, I think, actually ended up, from what I read something on Facebook. I think he had to get a therapist after acting this role out. So that's how deeply, yeah, it was exactly what I read. Yeah, he had to get a therapist. I guess that's kind of the toll that getting into the character and how deeply he got into this character does take its toll on actors, which is an interesting facet that we don't necessarily pay attention to. We look for the award ceremonies, but not necessarily the mental health of the person that's, performing the role. You look at Heath Ledger, who disappeared into The Dark Knight, or, Denzel Washington in Training, which is still like my top 3 movies in Training Day. Like, just people that disappear in the roles that end up, they deal with something afterward. And it's really interesting, to have to go see someone like directly after you're done, doing this. So
yeah, the dedication that some of these actors go through, like Joaquin Phoenix also is the Joker.
Yeah.
He lost like what, 40 pounds or something like that.
I think more.
Yeah, more than that.
More.
You
Yeah.
could see his ribs. You could see. It was like ridiculous.
Yeah, he walks around pretty heavy, so that was kind of from like a fighting lens. Like that was a nasty weight cut to take for that role, but it was I guess lucrative, right? So not a bad sacrifice.
I don't know if it's worth an Oscar. Maybe not, but I don't know. Dave, what do you think? Do you think actors they push over the limit?
Well, I mean, some of them do. Method actors in particular like to. It's kind of the way that they do things. Jared Leto is like the perfect example these days. But actually, speaking of the Batman cast, if you want to see another good example, see Christian Bale in The Machinist from at least 20 years ago at this point. He was as rail thin as you could imagine, and he did did that on purpose to his body to fit the role. And then he became Batman later, who was clearly not that thin. The other good example I could think of is Hilary Swank in Boys Don't Cry. I heard a story that she got so into the role that at some point towards the end of filming, like she had to have her husband like come to set, and they just kind of had to lock themselves away in her trailer to just remember who they were, to like help her remember who she was a little bit, because she was so into that role. And it showed. She won the Oscar for it, and very deservedly so.
There is a correlation between awards and really just pushing yourself to the absolute physical and mental limits. And sometimes it'll work in your favor. Sometimes you'll get sick from it. So it's a gamble.
Sure.
Oh man. So all right, Judas and the Black Messiah currently out in select theaters and streaming on HBO Max. And again, I think it's pretty universal where we all recommend this film.
Must.
Need to see this. It's so educational. I'll be honest with you, when I was a kid growing up, Black History Month, they didn't really go into detail much about anything. I can only remember like Martin Luther King Jr. and Harriet Tubman. That was it. There wasn't really much else. And I think if they showed this to students, they would get a much better appreciation and respect for the culture. So
same for me, by the way. Yeah. Like,
it's interesting to that end too, is as I watch, I'm very, very interested in it. They keep recycling the same figures over and over and over, same people over and over. Yes, but there are other people that created the traffic light, people that created a 3D camera, people that, there's so many other figures out there, and we just don't get taught that. Like Dave said, you have to go, like I had to wait till I got to college to learn about some of this stuff, or, you know, wait to, you know, see some of my family in Mississippi or Memphis to go learn a little bit. So now I feel like that's an obligation, at least on my end, to make sure that my kids are growing up with that. Their schools are doing a great job with it so far. Not that Black history is the only history they need to know. I want them to be well-rounded, but they are Afro-Latino, and I want them to know, you know, this is who you are, and be proud of it. So that period of time that this film covers is interesting too, because Malcolm X was killed 4 years prior, in 1965. So that was, it's like, even though I know you said it's not a political show, the government seems like it plays a big role, you know, in a lot of these, you know, like kind of government sanctioned, you know, I mean, murders for real. Like, I mean, they took, and like Malcolm X is still a, you know, conspiracy in some senses, but yeah, it's like at that time they wanted to wipe out all the leaders that they could, so, you know, they could effectively not make the Black culture sort of rise up. You know what I mean? It's very interesting to me.
They wanted to get rid of all the charismatic, good speakers, people.
Anybody emphatic, anybody that was going to give anyone ideas, you know, about changing the status quo. Those are the people that they wanted to get rid of, and they did, and by a lot.
Well, they may have gotten rid of a number of people, prominent figures, but, you know, people, they'll overcome. You know, I'm hopeful. You know, I mean, I love Barack Obama. I love his speeches that he made when he was president, and just so uplifting. And you know, we'll get through it. You know, as a nation, as a planet. So, yeah. So, okay, Judas and the Black Messiah. Everybody should go see that because it is fantastic, very, very important. As is Bullied. So both very important films. Also, guys, coming up, these are some coming attractions for March 5th. Chaos Walking. It's a sci-fi adventure starring Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley. So that's Spider-Man and Rey from the new Star Wars trilogy. So that should be interesting. We also have, Chris, you might like this for your kids, Raya and the Last Dragon. It's an animated action adventure. And Dave, Alan Tudyk is in it. He lends his voice in this. Awkwafina's in it as well. So that should be fun. We also have a drama coming up called Boogie, about a basketball player who lives in Queens, New York, where I live. And yeah, he's dreams of one day playing the NBA. So that sounds inspirational.
Nice.
Also, My Salinger Year. It's a drama starring Sigourney Weaver. That should be interesting. Also, The World to Come, which takes place in 19th century, the American East Coast. And it seems a little dull, but whatever. It's got Christopher Abbott, who was in Girls, the HBO show Girls, which was pretty good. So yeah, that's what's coming out March 5th. Anything capture your interest, Dave?
I've oh geez, I just blanked on the name. The first one with Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley. I just saw like a little teaser about it just yesterday for the first time, and it did look pretty interesting.
Chaos Walking, it's called.
Yeah. So that one, very new on the radar. But the other things I'm looking forward to are still kind of down the line a bit. Honestly, I got to admit, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League. Like, I want to see what he can actually do with.
There it is. That's the one.
We're excited about that.
That's the one.
I actually binge watched I rewatched the DC extended universe films, the live action films, in preparation for Wonder Woman 1984, and it was one of the best 2 weeks of my life, because I got to experience Wonder Woman again and how great that one was. I even liked Justice League a lot more than the first time I saw it. So.
You know, I saw Justice League and everybody's like, oh, it's terrible. But I think they were all saying that because they're comparing it to the Avengers. Like, it's not amazing, but it's really not terrible either. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I was like, you know, that was kind of fun. You know,
It just wasn't what it could. It just wasn't what it could have been.
Yeah. So I want to see if Snyder can actually turn it into something.
Well, even on Snyder's end, from what I remember reading, I think he lost a child during that process, and he handed the film over to Joss Whedon for that reason, which is obviously understandable, right? By all means. So when it's funny to watch people toss the stones at Snyder when they don't realize what's going on in people's lives, you know, why he wasn't able to get to that project and put it out the way he initially wanted to. So, you know, but I'm glad he's reaching out to the fans. This is interesting because fans, this doesn't happen. Fans, you know, petition for something, you know, and again, the power of the media, going back to what we were talking about with Bullied thing, like the power of social media and the digital presence, like kind of just, you know, spurned, I guess, the inspiration for him to finish what he started. And here we are, less than a month away.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just super excited also that Darkseid is actually in it. Like there's a visual of Darkseid in the trailer, and it's like he really should have been in there from the start. He's the big bad of the DC universe. You know?
But you know what? I've said
they do Darkseid. Yeah.
I have said this numerous times. You guys have probably heard me say it too about DC films and even Marvel films. It's the final battle that always annoys me. It's always so over the top and obnoxious and annoying, and I just do not want to watch it. Like, I think Aquaman might have been the worst because there was so much stuff going on. It was like sensory overload, and I just want to watch a decent story. I don't want to be bombarded with imagery and sound effects. It's a cheap, lazy way of filmmaking, and I hope that the Snyder Cut will kind of, you know, downplay that final battle and make it more about the characters, especially the Flash, played by Ezra Miller, who is hilarious, in my opinion. And he really made Justice League fun. So, Dave, since we have some time, are you a fan of the DC live action films as a whole, like from Superman 78 on?
Well, going back that far, Superman 2 is like one of the movies of my childhood. My sister and I probably watched that once a week for like years of our lives. We like jokingly still like vocalize the theme song to each other when we're bored. It's kind of funny. But
can you record that? I want to see that.
I will absolutely not record that and share it. Will not share it with anybody else in the history of mankind. But we still do.
All right, that's fair enough.
Like, you know, the Richard Donner movies were great. Superman 3 was kind of meh. Superman 4, like, everybody likes to pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. With Nuclear Man. But yeah, the modern ones, like, the best I can say about them is they're fine. You know, they're entertaining. I still get entertained by them, but they don't stay with me nearly as much as the Marvel movies do. So I'm hoping that gets a little change. On the other hand, like, in terms of animated television, it's completely the other way around. DC animated world is phenomenal. And I watched Young Justice not too long ago, a couple months ago. Finally, a friend had been recommending that I see it for a long time, and I've been putting it off forever. And I finally sat down and saw it. It was like, why didn't I watch this when it was new? It was fantastic. So all the DC animated stuff is very excellent.
And also, Batman the animated series is now on HBO Max. I think it's been there for a while, but yeah. If you want to, in my opinion, revisit probably the best version of the Batman character and the most true to the comic book stories and the animated series, look no further, in my opinion. And
the best voice actor for Batman, Kevin Conroy. Love that voice, man.
Mark Hamill is the Joker. I mean,
yeah, people don't know that. People don't know Mark Hamill is the Joker.
Well, people who go to New York Comic Con know.
That much I know.
Chris, what were some of your earliest memories of DC?
My first introduction to it, I read a lot of comic books, like old comic books my dad and his brother used to have, like way back, like some of the first ones, they ripped and tattered and all that. So I guess that was kind of my exposure. But yeah, Batman's always been my favorite. I think the 89 film, I used to be able to recite that word for word, the whole movie. Literally word for word. I remember being able to do it. I can't do it anymore, but had to free up some brain space for other things. But yeah, it's
do it. I can recite it.
Yeah, right. But I think Batman, anything Batman, pretty much. When I watched the '89 film when I was a kid, when I watched it, like, just kind of blew me, and that actually kind of spurred me getting into the martial arts as well. I was one of my intros one of my sources there. So anything, including the animated series that came out in the 90s, was just like had to watch it. So that was a lot of mine. Just really Batman. I hated Superman just for the fact that he just had all these powers. I was just like, all right, this guy's too perfect. Like, we need someone with a little pain in his life, and nothing makes Batman really super. He's just smarter than everybody else in the room, and I like that. He's got a contingency plan for the whole Justice League, and what was it? It was Justice League Unlimited, I think, was the cartoon, the show, maybe like early 2000s, and I think Batman's like, in the little space station they have, and everyone's like shocked that he's got this, big plan to, take everybody out. And they're like, oh, well, Superman's like, well, what's the plan for you? And he's like, you guys. So that was a cool, transitional moment, that humanizing moment for the Dark Knight, so to speak. But yeah, that's my early influence, I guess, from my father and my mother.
Favorite actor to put on the cowl?
Man, I would say Keaton, really, because it's hard to say because he came first. I would say Keaton. I think to this day has been real cool. I still think he would make a great older Batman too. The Batman Beyond series really was like thrilling for me to watch. That concept where I guess they first touched on, I guess the Dark Knight Returns did it first. With Batman, the aging Batman. I love that theme, that he kind of gets tired and has to resort to like, a gun, because he, his heart is bothering him and he can't take out the criminals anymore. And it's just such a great like way to bring everything together. Like, they had, at some point, you see like the writers and the creators had to get more creative. Like, it wasn't like, we can make Batman young forever, but let's bring in, the Green Arrow as an old person, and we have to beat Superman and the government involved, right? Like, Batman's got to go underground literally now. So, because they can't stand him being, who he is. That was a really cool storyline. I still have the comic books to this day, top of my library shelf, so nobody can get to that stuff.
Yeah, for me, Michael
there too.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I need to get back into comic book collecting, but yeah, Michael Keaton for me, hands down the best Batman. And close second would probably be Christian Bale.
But Ben Affleck looks like the cartoon from the 90s. He looks just like,
he does have the square jaw, yeah.
Square jaw and everything. I think he looks really good for I guess an aging Batman, if you will.
Yeah. And he's pretty buff now too, so physically
huge.
yeah.
I thought he was a very good like mid-40s Bruce Wayne.
For sure.
He fit that role very well. Yeah.
Dave, who would you say is your favorite actor?
I got to go with Keaton too. Just in part because Batman, the '89 Tim Burton one, came out when I was 10 years old, and so clearly it was the coolest thing to ever happen to me at that point.
Yeah, I was about 4 when the first movie came out.
I'll tell you, if they made a live action adaptation of Batman Beyond and put Michael Keaton back in Bruce Wayne's role, I would fanboy out over that so hard. It would be amazing.
Well, I've been looking at some stuff, some news, some film news, and I think, Keaton is definitely going to be involved in some capacity. I think he's going to be in the Flash movie.
Yeah,
cool.
As Batman, Bruce Wayne, and I think Affleck is going to be in it too.
Yep.
So
cool.
I don't know. I mean, you guys probably know more about Flashpoint than I do, and the kind of like the different realities that are going to converge. So it sounds pretty epic, what they've got planned. So
the animated Flashpoint movie was really, really good. That's honestly all I know about the whole Flashpoint story. A little bit about some of the other repercussions for other characters here and there about it, but that's really it. Really, I just got my info from the movie, and I'm like, based on the animated movie, I'm really excited for the live action one.
Cool. All right, guys. So we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to go down the list of Paramount Pictures. They send me every month their anniversaries, Blu-rays, DVDs, digital, anything that's coming down the pike that's celebrating milestones. And for the March anniversaries, we've got just a couple of films. The first one listed here is called The Mexican, and it's celebrating its 20th anniversary. It stars Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts. I never saw it, but it looks like it's directed by Gore Verbinski, who did the Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one. So that could be a fun little romantic adventure.
I saw that one. James Gandolfini is a really good supporting role in it, actually.
Gene Hackman's in it too. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie. It's not like amazing, but it's definitely not bad either. It's definitely fun. Yeah.
It's on your radar?
It would be, yeah, I suppose. I'd give it a light recommend.
Cool. Oh, and this is interesting. So the next one is also directed by Gore Verbinski, and it's celebrating its 10th anniversary. It's called Rango, and I don't think this did too well when it came out, but it's an animated, like a CGI animated film about a lizard like cowboy, played with a voice cast by Johnny Depp.
Right, yeah.
I remember it had a score by Hans Zimmer, which you guys know I love scores. I love Zimmer. It's like a very twangy Western adventure score. So that's, I think, the best thing that came out of that movie. I didn't see the movie, but I'm assuming. I'm not a huge Johnny Depp fan, even if it's, live action or animated. But yeah, that's Rango, celebrating its 10th anniversary.
Wow.
Next up on the list is actually a Michael Keaton comedy celebrating its 35th anniversary. It's called Gung Ho, and it's about him who basically works in an automobile assembly factory and deals with a Japanese auto firm to streamline it. It's got Keaton, it's got George Wendt, and John Turturro in an early role. So that was 1986, Gung Ho.
Wow. It's funny, as soon as you mentioned that it takes place in like the auto industry, I'm like, oh wait, I've totally seen like large chunks of that on TV, but I had no idea what it was called. So I know.
Yeah, now you know, and it's celebrating its anniversary. I've never actually seen it myself, but I'm pretty sure I've seen pieces on TV as well. Mm-hmm. So it's that type of movie,
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Enemy at the Gates, which is a war film celebrating its 20th anniversary. It's got Joseph Fiennes, Jude Law, Rachel Weisz, Bob Hoskins, and Ed Harris. And it's basically a World War II epic drama, which another movie that you would catch on cable, randomly.
I love that movie. It's it's about the Russian versus German snipers in the Battle of Leningrad.
Okay.
St. Petersburg, I don't remember. Yeah, in Russia in World War II, and the cast is fantastic. Ed Harris is freaking fantastic. He's the German sniper, and actually, like just maybe like 2-3 months ago, like I was home visiting my parents with my sister too, and we all just like wanted to find a movie to watch together. We watched that, and it was like probably the 7th time I've seen it. It's really, really good.
Would you compare it to Saving Private Ryan?
I mean, it's a very different movie. Saving Private Ryan was going for very serious war realism. This was more of an like sort of, I want to call it like a war epic, like kind of like a battle of the snipers, like like Mortal Enemy sort of thing.
Right. Like two experts in their field.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Like the Russian snipers were starting to stop the German forces in their invasion of Russia, and so Germany brings in their like ace sniper to hunt down the Russian sniper who's the hero, and conflict ensues.
That's a glowing review, sir. I may have to check this out now.
Yeah.
I do know that it has a score by James Horner, who the late great James Horner, who he was fantastic. We all know him from Titanic and the Land Before Time and Glory and Cocoon and Field of Dreams and Balto and Apollo 13. Yeah, he was phenomenal, and he lends his voice, his musical voice, to this great score. So that's worth noting. All right, celebrating its 15th anniversary is the Amanda Bynes comedy She's the Man. So after that, we've got the 35th anniversary of April Fool's Day, a thriller comedy. Celebrating its 20th anniversary is The First Spy Kids. They made 3 of those, I think, and then they did the Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I know way too much about this. But yeah, those were, I think, I definitely know the Spy Kids films were directed by Robert Rodriguez, and it was a sort of a departure from his like very adult, violent, epics, action, horror films. So it was nice that he came out with more of a kid-friendly romp. Gentlemen, any plugs do you have anything going on in your lives you want to tell the world? Chris?
Yeah, I've always kind of got stuff going on. I have my podcast. I just actually finished the fourth episode last week. It's called the Mastery Podcast with me, Chris Malarky, and I interviewed the 1992 Olympic gold medalist for Taekwondo, Herb Perez, who actually grew up watching, which was really cool to get in touch with him. Such a good guy and really nice. So I've got that going on. I've also got a website which has links to my social media, my Instagram, Master Chris Malarky, if you're looking for me. Private instruction that I have going on. So I've got a bunch of students now, kind of super booked, but yeah, and I've got apparel there as well. So that's mastercm.net. That's an M like Mary, mastercm.net. If you're looking to find me.
Yeah, I can imagine with COVID, the pandemic, you must be extremely busy teaching.
Yeah.
So
it's good that you really see the value of what we do. It's really like I consider it a test to see to really weed out who's who now. Because there's obviously differences between. I make the distinction between teachers and trainers. A trainer can just go tell you to go over there and do 5 and over there and do 5 and over there and do 5. And a teacher is supposed to provide a lot more rounded value for you. So I think that's where a lot of us, I have many friends who are martial artists. I sparred with the number 2 kickboxer in the world on New Year's Eve for a photo shoot. Happens to be a friend of mine. I didn't even know he was the number 2 kickboxer in the world. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on in my life. But yeah, those are the best places to reach me and get some more information on me.
And they address you as sensei? Master,
usually. Yeah. I'm not fond of calling myself that. That's just what my official title would be. I was a 5th degree black belt, so going on 6th at some point. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But I'm loose with everybody. I'm just looking to make the best impact I can, especially for people right now who I know need it. If my kids are looking for it, then I know adults surely need it.
That's awesome. And
thank you.
Yeah, you're giving back to the community, to just young minds who need your services. So that's really, really cool. Dave, any plugs for you?
Not directly for me. And kind of plug something for my mom though. I've been helping my mom build a website lately. It's called what'snewinromance.com. The website is actually called What's New in the Romance Department. It's a great effort to sort of spread some joy throughout the world as well. My mom has over the last several months joined a writing group through a local senior center and doing a lot of creative nonfiction. And so her idea was to basically have people share real world stories of romance, like how they met their partners and other related stories and musings on that. And so I've been helping my mom publish a website over the last 2 months or so. I've been scrambling, doing a whole lot of work for it to try to get it ready. Did for Valentine's Day, of course, which was a big milestone. And so it's up and running. It's looking pretty good. So check it out if you want some real life inspiration about romance. It's what'snewinromance.com.
That's awesome. I love it. I heart that.
Right on.
And for me, I just want to mention, I always mention this every week because it's an ongoing issue. There's a new documentary out there online called Hunger Ward, and it's about starving children in Yemen. If you want more information and to see the film, get more information about seeing that film, it's at hungerward.org. And you could also click the Get Involved button so you can donate to the cause to help support hospitals in the Yemen area. It's a very important cause. It's a very important film, and you should see the film, donate, do whatever you can, because these kids need our help more than anybody. So there's that. And I just want to close out thanking Chris Malarky. You're always welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Wexler, you're always welcome as well. You know that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, I want to thank you so much for watching the show today. This was a lot of fun. And if you want to see more episodes, just go to the YouTube channel, Under the Radar. And you could also watch episodes of Under the Radar every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. So check that out. And until next week, thank you so much. And I'll see you soon. Take care.